Believe it or not, I'm not from Brighton originally. you won't guess it, but where I'm from, we used to dream of going to Doncaster for days out. Seriously, if you drew a triangle between Barnsley, Doncaster and Rotherham and put a dot right in the middle, that's where I grew up. We were about 6 miles from each of them. And it was a toss-up which was worse, Rotherham, Barnsley or Donny. And we used to circulate around the three of them as kids, trawling about and trying to avoid bookshops. But we thought we'd done really well, but it turns out there was none. But yeah, so I grew up in a little mining town in South Yorkshire, and then I went off to uni up in Newcastle, and I went back up again as a teacher, and I lived in Gateshead, bought a flat in Gateshead, and I was a maths teacher in Newcastle for about 5 or 6 years. And then about 3 years ago, I found a fully funded PhD advertised at Sussex Uni, and I thought, well, I've had enough of the teenagers, I've learned what I can here, don't want to become cynical, do I? So I had a really nice time as a teacher, but time for a new challenge, so I applied for it and got it. And what an amazing opportunity to come to Brighton in your mid-30s, to have this time away from the kids to learn, to study, to reflect and to grow as a person. And it would be great to have that time anywhere, but to have that time in Brighton, it's like, oh, what a lucky man I am. And it's been really nice to combine the two, learning about myself while mooching about Brighton and soaking it up. Because you don't have to travel much in Donny to know that Brighton's a bit different from a lot of places. And it really is. It's different from Donny, it's different from Gateshead. But it's different from the great cities up there as well, Newcastle, Sheffield, Liverpool. These cities are amazing, absolutely wonderful, and I miss them dearly. But Brighton is very different, it's unique. It's different from a lot of the southern places as well. You can't just chuck money at it as a reason. It's very different from Haywards Heath. It has a lot of money, But so it's not just money. Obviously, if you chuck money at Donny and did it in the right way, you could enable people to do things that they can't do at the moment. And economic development is a real means. Economic growth is a real means to development. But this is the key point. Economic development shouldn't be the goal. And that's what we've got in this country and wider afield. We've made economic growth the goal. And it's not the goal at all. It can't be the goal. Because what's the goal? To grow more and more and more. You end up not with a natural growth there. You end up with a cancerous growth. Growth for growth's sake. So economic development is a means. Economic growth is a means to development. So that's what places like Doncaster need. But it's not the goal. So the question in my head, as I've been sort of bumbling about Brighton, is what is it that makes Brighton different from Donny? What is it that makes Brighton unique? And I've been trying to think about that in terms of my research as well at university. I'm studying mathematics broadly, but more specifically network theory, and how we can use network theory to start to say things about how people come together and the emergent things that come out of people coming together and collaborating. And we've seen very practical examples of that in the talks we've had today. A lot of the good things that happen, in fact, most of the good things that happen when 2 or more people get together and the value's created on the link. So I'm trying to bring these network ideas into my thoughts of Brighton and what makes it unique. And I've been asking my friends as well, what makes Brighton unique, what makes it special, and everyone's got an answer. Oh, it's because of this, it's because of that. And everyone's very quick to jump on a reason why Brighton is who it is. But they're falling into a classic mistake there, and it's a mistake we all make. They're taking a reductionist view of a very complex system. And the reason we do that is because of the success of modern science, unfortunately. And modern science is a great tool for doing certain things, but because of its success, we've deified it in a way. We said that if a question can't be answered through modern reductionist science, then it's not a valid question. So rather than saying, is science the correct tool for this question, we're saying if science can't be used to answer it, the question's invalidated. And this is actually seeping, whether you're a scientist or not, it's seeping into the public consciousness. And we end up having a purely reductionist approach to problems. And a reductionist approach, by that I mean we isolate a problem and we look at it in isolation of all the rest of the problems that surround it. And we're under the impression that whatever event happens, whatever effect, we can find a single cause that's led to it. Now, that's great in a laboratory where we can control variables and we can adjust one variable at a time and we can say things about how that impacts on that. But in the real world, when you're dealing with people, when you're dealing with groups of people, communities, cities, towns, when you're dealing with families, when you're dealing with economies, ecosystems, food webs, anything like that where you've got a messy, horrible ball of people, then you can't take a reductionist approach. You can't say, why are we in a financial crisis? You can't say, why is Moulsecoomb so different from Brighton when it's so near to it? Because the reductions approach doesn't yield any results, because what you've got is you've got complex systems here. And a complex system is when you've got lots of components that interact in a certain way that gives rise to emergent phenomena. So a person would be a complex system. You know, think about all the bits inside of me that are interacting together in various ways, and think of all the interactions I have with all the people from my mum and dad on down that have led to me being who I am now. I'm an emergent phenomenon from the interactions of very, very individual parts of me. A family would be a complex system. A family is an emergent concept from the interactions of the members of that family. And so is a town. So if we can start to think about how do the people in Brighton interact that's different from how the people in Doncaster interact, then maybe we can start to say things about why Brighton's unique and what makes it different from Donny. You know? So I'm asking my friends, what makes Brighton unique? What makes it special? They all got different answers, but one thing that was highlighted by everybody I spoke to was this idea of open-mindedness, of acceptance, of tolerance. Whatever you look like, whatever you're into, whoever you want to sleep with, there'll be a group in Brighton that share your interests, and we'll support you and give you the relationships and the support you need to flourish as a person. And that's great, you know, and we see that, don't we? We see the skaters, we see the Lindy Hop dancers, we see the crazies that swim in the sea every morning, even in January. You know, we see the special brew drinking smackheads, you know. They're all there, they've all got their own little groups. And a lot of people highlighted that as a real positive of Brighton. But actually, interestingly, one or two people also identified it as maybe a negative of Brighton. Not a negative, that's the wrong way, but they didn't talk about it effusively as a positive across the board. But some people said, when I first moved to Brighton, I found it a bit cliquey was a word that got mentioned a lot. So there's a group of people that share all the same interests as me. And I'd love to go and join them, but I can't. And a lot of that was personal. It was these people's fears that stopped them doing it, not a quality of Brighton itself. But regardless of whether they highlighted these characteristics as positive or negative, everybody highlighted this diverse and structured groups of people as a feature of Brighton. So, okay, I think back to Donny, and I'm sure I can find groups of special brew drinking smackheads, but maybe not the Lindy Hoppers or the, you know, it's hard to identify groups. I'm sure there's individuals in Doncaster that would love to get together and create these groups, but maybe the infrastructure isn't there. And actually, so you can go to cities and find these groups. It doesn't explain why Brighton's unique. And for me, what makes it truly unique is it's the links between the groups. And this is really, really important on a wider sort of theme as well about dealing with economic and social problems, because everybody's got their own agenda. Everybody's got their thing that they're passionate about. This is the change that I want to make. And somebody else is here going, no, this is the change we should make. You get into Life of Brian territory, or follow the sandal, no, follow the God. And they're all trying to follow the same thing. And what we need to move forward, I think, collectively as families, as towns, as societies, is we need to establish these links between groups. And in sociology terms, these are called weak ties. And weak ties are so important because it's what makes it a small world. What gives it the 6 degrees of separation you hear about, the Kevin Bacon game. It's the weak ties that allow me to find a chain of handshakes in 6 from me to an Aborigine living in the bush in Australia. It's the weak ties that give us access to the information and opportunities that we wouldn't normally get. If I want a new room or a new job, I'm not necessarily going to ask my close friends, because I've probably got the same information that they have. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask their friends, or I'm going to ask that guy I bumped into the other day. And it's the weak ties that give you access to a whole different group of society. And the more weak ties you have, the more ties that link all these disparate groups together, the stronger society becomes and the stronger we become as individuals. And I think Brighton has that in abundance. And I think what gives it that in abundance is, in part, it's geography maybe. It's very micro, isn't it? You've got the downs there and you've got the sea there and there's Brighton in the middle of it. So it's quite compact, but it's also a nice place. You want to be out in Brighton. It's got these beautiful cafes, it's got these bars, it's got the seafront, it's got the parks. So people get out there in the community. And if you sit outside the Dorset on a Saturday afternoon and have a beer, you're going to bump into someone you know. It might be a friend. It might be a guy you only bumped into at a party last week who said something really interesting. And you bumped into him again. Oh, Mark, isn't it? You're the guy who's talking about collective ownership of enterprise from employees. Brilliant. I really need to sit down and talk to you about that. And it's very easy to establish and maintain these weak links within Brighton. And I think that's what makes it a truly, truly special place. Because Any value that we create in our society, as I said, is created on links between people. And Brighton gives people opportunity to create those links. It gives people opportunity to come together with shared ideas. And somebody says, I love your idea. And people are willing to put their money where their mouth is in Brighton as well. Because there's all these meetings and opportunities, somebody's going to say, I love your idea, I'm going to give you this time. Or, I love this idea, you need to talk to that person there. Or, I love this idea, I'm going to invest in you. And we end up with a model of society where people are put at the centre of it. People are willing to invest in people and to take chances because we instinctively know, whether we put it in network terms or not, we instinctively know that modern economics is a load of bloody rubbish. It's not about maximising at the individual level. It's not. Because we are the sum of the relationships we have. You know? If we have bad relationships with people, it reflects back on us. And we know this absolutely if you've ever had children. Or if you've ever lost somebody that you love dearly. You change as a person because the network structure around you changes. And we are the sum of the relationships we have. So we can't move forward and face all the social, economic and environmental problems we face as individuals. It's only by recognising that by creating value in the wider community, that will come back on us and benefit us twofold, tenfold, however manyfold. And it's only by strengthening these ties and coming together and recognising how my issue that I'm campaigning on actually has a lot of common ground with that issue you're campaigning on there. Let's come together and campaign together on this common ground. And it's only by doing that that we're going to be able to move forward and to face the problems that we're going to face today. I'm very lucky to be in Brighton. Thank you.